أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. We continue with the verse number 32 of Surah Al-Kahf. وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلَ الرَّجُلَيْنِ جَعَلْنَا لَأَحَدِهِمَا جَنَّتَيْنِ مِنْ أَعْنَابٍ وَحَفَفْنَاهُمَا بِنَخْلٍ وَجَعَلْنَا بَيْنَهُمَا زَرْعًا. Draw for them the parable of two men, unto one of whom we had assigned 2 gardens of grapes, and we had surrounded both with date palms, and had placed crops between them. Now, this is the start of a new story in Surah Al-Kahf to support and strengthen the concepts which were being taught to the readers at the beginning of the surah. Now, the first parable, there are 2 parables coming one after another. One of them is the story of 2 men. It's about 2 men who were companions with each other, and the type of relationship between them is not mentioned in the story, whether they were relatives or friends, or one of them was working for the other. It just says they were companions with each other. They had some connection. And one of them was extremely rich, and the other probably extremely poor. And they had a debate about God, the day of judgment, and such things. The rich man, due to his wealth, power, strength, the number of people who were serving him, was of the idea that all these things I have made. It was due to my talent, my power, my struggle, my efforts. I have brought them about, and I don't think these are going to go away. And I don't think there is any day of judgment. Everything is in this world. Everyone sees the fruit of their efforts, in the result of their efforts in this world, and that's all. Nothing will happen later on. And supposedly that there is a day of judgment. Supposedly that there is death, there is destruction of this world, of these gardens that I have, or the wealth that I have. Supposedly there is such a thing. I will find a better place than you there because I'm more talented. The way I have made all this here for myself, I can make it in the next world as well. Or you say there is a God, and God, everything is in his hands. I will tell you, if God has honored me with all these things that I have in this world, certainly he will honor me better in the next world. Now, the debate continued between them. He took the man to his gardens and showed them the lush, fruitful wealth of his gardens, his mansions there, the servants, everything, to somehow defeat him, not by the argument, but by the reality. You see the reality here. You see who is more powerful. You see who is more honored, more dignified. Now, the poor man said, you are rejecting the blessings of your Lord. You are rejecting the fact that all these are the blessings of your Lord. You forget that you were nothing. You were just dust. From dust he created you into a drop of seminal water, and then from that he created you a man. Now, why do you think that all these things you have brought about? Who are you to bring about all these things? Who are you to produce all these things? And if you think that I am poor and you are rich, and you think that this is what God has done to us, and this is what our talent has brought about, the fortunes may change. This world is not very reliable. The fortunes may change. Tomorrow you may lose everything due to a disaster, and God may give me something that I would never expect. So why do you think like that? And it happened that the misfortune came. The misfortune came for that man, the rich man. The garden was destroyed, and the man who had spent so much wealth and money to produce those gardens regretted it, and then said, I wished I had not associated anything with the Lord, meaning associated my own power. Associating partners with God, with the Lord, is not always associating some idols or some gods or goddesses. Most of the time what happens is that we associate our powers, our talents, with the power of God, with the wisdom of God. And we think that we are actually the cause of things. Now, the story is trying to tell us, the parable is trying to bring home this idea that you shouldn't think that you are cause of anything. You may be a condition. The problem is we usually confuse between condition and cause. A condition is that if the condition does not exist, the result does not come about. But it doesn't mean that if the condition exists, the result necessarily comes about. Now, because our efforts, our talents are usually, not of course universally, usually a condition for bringing about things, we think that we are causing them, while the sole cause of things are Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what the story wants to tell us. The sole cause of everything is God. The only thing is that you, as a condition of these things to come about, to be caused by God, that you have to make effort, you have to have talent, you have to work hard. As a condition, you should not confuse yourself with the cause. The cause is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So He may bring about things when the condition exists. He may not bring about things when the condition exists. And He may bring about things when this condition does not exist. As I said, it's a usual condition, not a universal condition. Not always it's like that. Anyhow, the story, as I said, wants to bring home the concepts which are mentioned at the beginning of the surah. There is a sort of disagreement about which concept it is going to support and strengthen this story. Now, Allama Tabatabai Rahmatullah alayhi says that, you remember at the beginning of the surah, Allah mentioned, إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا مَا عَلَى الْأَرْضِ زِينَةً لَهَا لِنَبْلُوَهُمْ أَيُّهُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. We have made whatever is on the earth as a decoration, adornment, so that we test them who is best in conduct, so that they are attracted, they interact with this world. If there is not such a zina, if there is not such an adornment, there is no desire for human being to interact with this world. Now, we have made this zina to bring about this interaction so that people are tested. And, of course, we will وَإِنَّا لَجَاعِلُونَ مَا عَلَيْهَا سَعِيدًا جُرُزًا. We will make it just a barren plain. Now, this story is telling how this zina can become a barren plain. Others have said that, although that is true, but the closer concept that the story is going to bring home for us is the verse which advised the Prophet to keep steadfast with the poor among his companions, and do not listen to the rich people who want these people to be dispersed from around the Prophet, as we had in the verse, which is just a couple of verses before this story, which makes more sense. وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ يُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَهُ. Keep steadfast, keep yourself with those people who call their Lord continuously. وَلَا تَعْدُ عَيْنَاكَ عَنْهُمْ تُرِيدُ زِينَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Do not exceed, do not go beyond them or do not look at anything beyond them, seeking the adornment of the life of this world, and listen to this story. So, the story is, as I said, to bring home to us, well, both concepts are somehow explained in this story, that in this parable, that first of all, whatever we have here is an adornment and would perish. Although man tends to always think that the life of this world is eternal, although our reason tells us that it's not eternal, our logic tells us, our heart wants to believe that no, it's going to continue, it's going to be eternal, I'm going to be here all the time. The mind says, yes, of course, you see everyone dies and you will die, but the heart doesn't want to accept it. Now, this wants to say that, this story wants to say that look how things may happen, how fortunes may change in this world, and nothing would remain eternal. And of course, anyone who's poor, it doesn't mean that it is neglected by God. And anyone who's rich, it doesn't mean that he's honored by God. Rich and poor, in the eyes of God, rich wealth and poverty doesn't mean dignity and neglect. Dignity and neglect come from somewhere else. Okay, now let's go to the details of the story. Now, first of all, there is a discussion among the exegetes whether this is only a parable which does not refer to any real story outside, or it is a real story made as a parable for us. Now, some exegetes say that it's only a parable because there's no mention of any real incident outside that may have occurred to tell us that there was such a story. However, others argue, and they have their own good arguments, that no, of course, it refers to a true story, but that true story is brought here without mentioning the details and the name and references, as an example, as a parable for us, which usually all the stories of the Quran are like that. And the details given in the story is a proof, is somehow an evidence that yes, it is referring to one real story. Now, Zamakhshari in Kashaf has mentioned a couple of instances for this story. For example, he says the story may refer to something which happened among two brothers in Banu Israel. One of them very rich, the other very poor, and the rich one was all the time criticizing the poor one for his poverty, and the poor one, of course, was criticizing his brother for his defiance against God. Or he says it's about Abu Salama, the first husband of Salama, who was very poor. Salama, later on the Prophet, peace be upon him, married Salama after Abu Salama passed away. And another very rich man of the Mushrikun who were arguing with each other. However, none of these are proven. We just may say that, yes, it is a real story. We don't know the details of it, to which story it refers, but Allah has made it as a parable for us to ponder upon the concepts mentioned in the surah. And Zamakhshari in Kashaf also says that this is a reference to a story which is mentioned in Surah Safat. In Surah Safat, there's a very interesting story about the people of paradise. Say that فَأَقْبَلَ بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. When they are in paradise, they have settled there in peace and prosperity, then they start to converse with each other. And they remember the life in this world. قَالَ قَائِلٌ مِّنْهُمْ إِنِّي كَانَ لِي قَرِينٌ. One of them would say, well, this is just an example of their conversation. I had a companion. Now, qareen, of course, someone who was always with me. I had a companion. يَقُولُ أَإِنَّكَ لَمِنَ الْمُصَدِّقِينَ. He used all the time telling me, do you really believe? Do you really confirm, approve of all these nonsense talk about Day of Judgment and such thing. يقول أئنك لمن المصدقين أإذا متنا وكنا ترابا وعظاما أإنا لمدينون. Do you really believe this nonsense that when we die and we are bones and dust, then we are going to be requited for our actions? This is, of course, not believable. This is nonsense. This is stories of the past people. So do you believe in this? يقول أئنك لمن المصدقين أإذا كنا ومتنا وكنا ترابا وعظاما أإنا لمدينون. Then he says قال هل أنتم مطلعون. Let's look where this man is now. As I said, the people of paradise, whenever they want to see the people of hell, they can. Actually, there the travel is not to somehow treading a distance. The travel there is just you divert your attention and you are wherever you want. So it's a different world, certainly a different world. So let's look where this man is. That means let's go there and see where is he. Of course, even when they go there, they are not burned by the fire of hell. They have a distance of dimensions. So, and even people of hell can see the people of paradise if they wish. That is how human beings will become. They will become like that. They exponentially grow in their senses and in their abilities. Now, قال هل أنتم مطلعون. Would you like to come with me and see where this man is now? فَاطَّلَعَ. Now, he diverts his attention. He looks. This ittila is just giving his attention to this side, and he is there. فَاطَّلَعَ فَرَآهُ فِي سَوَاءِ الْجَحِيمِ. He see that man in the middle of the hell. قال تالله إن كدت لتردين. Then he starts to converse with this man in hell. So very, very interesting, isn't it? We can just see the people in hell and we can converse with them. قال تالله إن كدت لتردين ولولا نعمة ربي لكنت من المحضرين. If it was not because of the blessing of my Lord, I would have been there with you now. Had I listened to what you said, I would have been there. Now, Zamakhshari says that this story refers to these two men. One of them who were denying the Lord and the other one who were approving and was actually debating about it. Anyhow, whether these two stories are related or not, these are two examples of similar situations. One is trying to convince the other that whatever is here is due to our efforts, due to our talent, due to our knowledge, because we are like this, and God has no say here. And the other one, of course, believes in God and see everything from Him. And this story is not something which loses its significance by time. You can see very clearly in our time. Just listen to LBC every morning, you see the same argument. We are here because, of course, we are powerful, we have science, we have technology. And this argument is not something which somehow becomes old. It's always there, that it is not God who does these things, it is us who do it. And of course, there are others who say it is God, and wealth and poverty does not mean honor and being ignored by God. Now, let's come to the details. As I said, one of the arguments is that whether this refers to a real story or a hypothetical sort of story. The other discussion is Al-Qummi also, I forgot to say this. Qummi says that yes, this was a real story about two people, two persons, one of them having two very huge gardens with very lush sort of proceeds, and the other one very poor one, and the rich one was boasting on the poor one. Now, وَضْرَبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا. This mathal is for whom? For whom? For the poor and rich, or for the believer and disbeliever? well, it may refer to both of them. That the example of a mu'min and a kafir, or the example of the rich and the poor, are like this, what I mentioned in this story. So, مثلا رجلين, there were two men. جعلنا لأحدهما جنتين. For one of them we had put, you see, جعلنا, we had given. No matter whether you acquire your wealth through your talent or by cheating others or whatever, it's all the giving of God. Now, if you take it wrongfully, you are going to be punished for it, although again it's God who is giving it. And if you take it rightfully, you are going to be questioned about how you use it, how you spend it. So we had given him, ja'alna, not he, of course, as he thought, by his talent or work or whatever. لَأَحَدِهِمَا, for one of them we had given two gardens. Now, why two gardens are important here? Because one may ask, God, couldn't you give one garden to each of them? Isn't it? It was possible. Why didn't you give one garden to each of them? Now, إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا مَا عَلَى الْأَرْضِ زِينَةً لَهَا لِنَبْلُوَهُم. It's for test. Yes, we want to see the man who has more share, even the share of the other, as you may think, is in his hand. How does he react? And the man who doesn't have anything, how does he react? So we don't give everyone equally, just to see how people react to different things. Of course, the test and trial of the rich ones are more difficult than the trial of the poor ones, because the poor ones don't have anything to be tried except for their patience. The rich ones are more responsible because they have to look after the poor. They have to realize and recognize that what is in their hand does not really belong to them. It comes from Allah and it belongs to everyone. They have to give it to everyone. So as Faiz Kashani also mentions in his book Al-Haqa'iq, he says that don't think that to be rich is easier in trial than to be poor. To be poor is actually easier because you have no responsibility. To be rich is more difficult because your trial is harder then. So جَعَلْنَا لَأَحَدِهِمَا جَنَّتَيْنِ مِنْ أَعْنَابٍ. It was vineyards. Both gardens were vineyards, lots of grapes and lots of proceeds. وَحَفَفْنَاهُمَا بِنَخْلٍ. And these gardens, they were made in a way that anyone would have said these are the most perfect gardens on the earth. We have made round it palm trees. So the proceed was not only grapes, the proceed was dates as well. And the wall round these vineyards were not just the stones and bricks, it was these tall palm trees. Now, of course, this man had made it himself. He had planted these palm trees round this garden, but Allah says, we did it. It is a very important concept for the believers to realize that they are only conditions for things to come about. They are not causes. So وَحَفَفْنَاهُمَا بِنَخْلٍ وَجَعَلْنَا بَيْنَهُمَا زَرْعًا. And between these two gardens were far apart from each other, and between them were farms of crops. Now, so the man was very rich. And was not only thing that he had, وَكَانَ لَهُ ثَمَرٌ, and he had lots of wealth. Apart from these two gardens, he had lots of wealth. So, now, the beautiful thing in this is that this man, of course, had spent lots of money of his wealth to somehow make these gardens the way they were. Trellises, the palm trees around it, the irrigation, and all these things, he had made it. But look how Allah mentions, جَعَلْنَا, we made these gardens. حَفَفْنَاهُمَا, we surrounded it with palm trees. جَعَلْنَا بَيْنَهُمَا, we made these farms of crops to be between them. So again, Allah is denying the causality of the man for this, or his wealth, or whatever. They were just conditions. We had made it, we had allowed it, we had given the leave for him to do all these things. And apart from it, the next verse says that كلتا الجنتين, both of these gardens, آتت أكلها, yielded their produce without extending anything of it. لم تظلم منه شيئا. One of the meanings of ظلم is to reduce. Means لم تنقص منها شيئا. It did not, the fruits did not diminish at all. Every year, because usually the gardens are like this. One year there is good produce, the other year there isn't good produce, and sometimes there are things which wouldn't allow the garden to give fruits very well. But no, we had made it perfect. Both of these gardens gave their fruit. لم تظلم منه شيئا. Nothing was diminished of their produce, of the fruits. وَفَجَّرْنَا خِلَالَهُمَا نَهَرًا. And between these two gardens, we had made a river to flow. Again, we did it. We did all these things to this man. Now, did we honor him? I will tell you now, later on, whether we honored him or we did not honor him. Now, two gardens, a river coming, irrigation very nicely, and I mean, anyone would see these things, would be deceived by it. That's, yes, of course. Look, what have I done? What have I produced? What have I created? And what wealth is going to bring back to me 100 times of what I've spent on it. وَكَانَ لَهُ ثَمَرٌ. And apart from that, he had abundant wealth. Apart from that. Of course, he had wealth to be able to buy the land, to make all these things happen, to make these gardens, palm trees, crops coming. So he had abundant wealth. فَقَالَ لِصَاحِبِهِ. Now, of course, as I said, the details are not mentioned. Who was this companion? And what was their relation? The only thing is that وَهُوَ يُحَاوِرُهُ. He was debating with him. Debating about something which we realize from the flow of the story that the debate is about God and the Day of Judgment. About who gives, who creates, who produces, and what will happen later on. So he had an argument, he had a debate with his companion. In the debate he said, فَقَالَ لِصَاحِبِهِ وَهُوَ يُحَاوِرُهُ. He was debating with him. أَنَا أَكْثَرُ مِنْ كَمَالًا وَأَعَزُّ نَفَرًا. You say that I'm a kafir. You say I don't believe in God. Okay, what does it matter? How important it is. Look what I have. Look at the realities. Why do you look about hallucination, what is in your mind? The reality is this. I have more power and more money. أَعَزُّ نَفَرًا. Nafar, they say nafar are from nafr. Nafr is to travel from place to place. And therefore nafar are those people who always are with you in your travel. So servants, children, these are the nafar. So my nafar is more powerful than yours. You don't have anyone, or just a few children probably. You don't have servants and such things. And of course, wealth. Now you tell me, who's better off, a mu'min or a kafir? وَكَانَ لَهُ ثَمَرٌ فَقَالَ لِصَاحِبِهِ وَهُوَ يُحَاوِرُهُ أَنَا أَكْثَرُ مِنْ كَمَالًا وَأَعَزُّ نَفَرًا. I am stronger with respect to numbers, and I have more wealth than you. And to show him or to prove for him, he said, okay, he took his hand, said, come with me. Come with me, I show you. He took the man into his garden. وَدَخَلَ جَنَّتَهُ. He entered his garden. Now, جَنَّتَهُ, of course, because he couldn't, previously said he had two gardens, Jannatain, he cannot enter both gardens at the same time. Now, Zamakhshari in Kashaf, Zamakhshari is one of the most excellent exegetes especially in terms of Arabic grammar and the way he relates the sentences to each other, and he was a Mu'tazili, of course, Sunni scholar. He says there is a very beautiful hint here. Why jannatahu, not jannatayhi, not the two gardens? Just because this was his garden. This was his paradise. Unlike the mu'min who has a paradise in the hereafter, which of course is not compared to whatever is here. The whole earth and whatever it has cannot somehow be counted compared to 1 acre of paradise that a person may have in garden here may have in paradise. However, this was his share from the existence. This was all he had, and later on, of course, he's not going to have anything. Anyhow, it's a hint. It's just something he takes from the flow of the sentence. وَدَخَلَ جَنَّتَهُ. Now, this is very interesting. وَهُوَ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ. He was wronging himself, and he entered his garden while he was thus harming his own soul. He was wronging his own self. How did he wrong himself? How was he harming his soul? قَالَ مَا أَظُنُّ أَن تَبِيدَ هَذِهِ أَبَدًا. He said, I do not think that this will ever perish. Now, how did he wrong himself here? He wronged himself in 2 ways. First of all, he wronged himself with his self-admiration and his ungratefulness to the Lord. He said he congratulated himself and admired himself. He boasted. In that he wronged himself, because this is not the situation that a person should have in this way. It's going to harm them. It's going to, of course, destroy them. And the second, to be ungrateful, again, is a harm. So 2 harms were coming to him. 2 harms. Look, this wealth was going to harm this man by giving him this self-admiration and by, of course, giving him ungratefulness that he had towards the Lord. Other meanings of ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ, what other exegetes have given is that, yes, because his attitude was conducive to withdrawal of this ni'mah. The way he looked at it was conducive to withdrawal of the ni'mah. So he actually wronged himself in that as well. Now, dhulm, as I said, one meaning of dhulm is to reduce. And by entering his garden with that attitude, he caused the reduction of the ni'mah of Allah. And this, we know that ungratefulness would cause the reduction of ni'mah. And the other thing is that other meaning of zulm is to put things not in the right place by thinking that he was the one who caused all these things, while he was nothing, he was just dust, as the man mentions later on. You were just dust. Why do you think you have caused all these things? How could you have done that? So, because he was just dust, and he was thinking that he was the cause of all these things, so he was misplacing things instead of seeing Allah. So, وَهُوَ ظَالِمٌ. What the first meaning is better. He actually harmed his soul by his self-admiration and his ungratefulness. قَالَ مَا أَظُنُّ أَن تَبِيدَ هَذِهِ أَبَدًا. I do not think that this is going to be perished at all. Well, probably until the end of my life. I have all this wealth. I rely on this. And who is going to take this away? Who has the power to take this away from me? So I don't think this is going to perish. And this is the situation of all those who have some sort of amenities in this world. They rely on it and they think that it's going to remain for them forever, or they remain for it forever. This is how the long aspirations come. Now, Zamakhshari again has a very beautiful statement here. He says that don't think that this is only about kuffar. I know many rich Muslims who have these attitudes. So it is a state of heart that people have, whether they admit they are Muslims or Kafir, they have this state of heart to rely on these things very much and to think that this is because of their efforts and forgetting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why when, for example, something is withdrawn from them, they say, Allah, why did you take it from me? I had created, I have made it, I had produced it. It's my effort. Why did you take it from me? So this is what Zamakhshari says. And also, وَمَا أَظُنُّ السَّاعَةَ قَائِمَةً. I don't think there is such a thing as day of judgment or hour. I don't think so. Ma adhunnu, I don't think so, because no one can categorically say that it's not so. He was a wise man. I don't think that there is going to be a day of judgment. Supposedly, as you argue, that there is a reckoning, there is something like that. وَلَئِن رُدِدْتُ إِلَىٰ رَبِّي لَأَجِدَنَّ خَيْرًا مِنْهَا مُنْقَلَبًا. And even if I am returned to my Lord, I will surely find a resort better than this. Now, here he doesn't say that if I return to my Lord, ila Rabbi, so he concedes that he has a Rabb, but he says that the Rabb has given me this talent, I have made all these things for myself. And he doesn't say God will give me when I return. He says, you see, my talent, I have made all this, even on the day of judgment, with my talent, I will make the same thing. I'm going to find better things. Or, if God has honored me in this world with all this, He is going to honor me later as well. لَأَجِدَنَّ خَيْرًا مِنْهَا مُنْقَلَبًا. So, we have this idea in many other verses of the Quran, that people think that if they are honored in this world, they will be honored in the next world as well. If they have done well in this world in terms of wealth and amenities, they are going to do well in the next world. And we have many other verses in the Quran like that. For example, in Surah Maryam, أَفَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي كَفَرَ بِآيَاتِنَا. Have you not considered the one who rejects our communications? وَقَالَ, and he says, لَأُوتَيَنَّ مَالًا وَوَلَدًا. He says, even if I go back to my Lord, the way He has given me here, He will give me there. لَأَجِدَنَّ خَيْرًا مِنْهَا مُنْقَلَبًا. What some exegetes say that is that he believed in the reverse of jaza, meaning that there is no jaza for actions, for good acts, for bad acts. It's just the jaza, it's just the talent that I have. So this was his argument, and then his companion started to reply. قَالَ لَهُ صَاحِبُهُ وَهُوَ يُحَاوِرُهُ. Now his companion started his statement in the debate, which inshallah we'll leave this for next week. وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ وَآلِهِ الطَّاهِرِينَ.
Thank you very much, Shaykh. So, brothers and sisters, we have about 15-20 minutes to clarify anything that you want to, and yeah, Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much indeed for that.
Thank you.
Shaykh, I think all of us can actually see what you just said, that perhaps it's not just for the kafir that they feel this sense of achievement. So I think that for practical purposes, and we accept that every human being needs self-respect. So where is it that one balances the self-respect against the arrogance? How does one find a comfortable place between that to be able to continue their life as a Muslim, and recognizing that it is from God, and perhaps not just having that as lip service, but actually feeling that?
Mm-hmm. Well, self-respect is very important, of course, and we are advised to have self-respect and to keep our dignity. However, that's different from thinking that what respect we have is due to us. I mean, it's a very delicate issue, and as you mentioned, and as we see in ourselves even, that we sometimes confuse between the two. That I think that I have achieved all these things. Yes, I have achieved it because I tried. However, Allah had the blessing on me to do this. And if we the way this man argues with the wealthy person, the poor man argues with the wealthy person, is very important. He says, look at your origin. Look at your origin. He doesn't say you didn't make any effort, it just came by itself, it was accident. No. He says, look at your origin. You were dust, and then you were a seminal fluid. Now, how could you be cause of anything when you have come from there? If we always think about this, what is our origin? فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسَانِ Quran advises us many times on this. فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسَانِ مِمَّا خُلِقَ Man should look from what source has he been created. I think this is the most important thing. If we remember this, we will have our self-respect, and then we, of course, attribute everything to God.
Before I go to any sisters, before we come back to the brothers? No? Nizar? Thank you.
Just a follow-on comment to what we heard. Of course, self-respect is not a proactive process. I can't do anything to create self-respect. It's my behavior that generates respect from people around me. So I don't need to do anything. I just need to follow what my principles are, what my beliefs are, and let the community judge.
Yeah.
Self-respect for yourself.
Not respect of other people for you.
No, but
How you keep your own self-respect. You know, we always talk about humility, humbleness, and then does that actually mean that we have to lose our self-respect? Does that mean that we have to somehow foul ourselves before others? We know some mystics used to do this. There was a group of mystics called Malamatiyah, those people who wanted to bring condemnation upon themselves, to prove that they are nothing. And, for example, they went to brothels and wine houses without drinking. They just sat there so that people see them there. And they say, oh, these are wild people, these are vicious people. They wanted to crush their self-respect, so to speak, say that we are humble. Now, of course, we know that this is not allowed at all. And we know that a mu'min should keep his izzah. وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. So where do we draw the line? That we keep our izzah, we keep our self-respect, we behave in a way that people respect us, and we are humble in ourselves. That's the very difficult thing to do. As I said, if we look at our origin all the time, it will bring us this idea. There's this dua, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, who says that, do not raise me in the eyes of people any degree unless you make me, reduce me within myself, or increase in my humbleness within myself. And this is something that most of us cannot do. It's very difficult. When we are respected by people, we feel arrogant. And when we are disrespected, we feel humbled and isolated. This is what we have to learn, that this respect, self-respect is not due to, so to speak, talent or wealth or something like this. Self-respect comes when we are connected to God. That is the most important thing.
Thank you. Sisters, before we come back to the brother? Any sister? No? Safraj?
Assalamu alaikum. Shaykh, sometimes, from what I've found, my understanding of this parable is that we often make mistakes by having a correct argument but misunderstanding it. Like when the man said that, why would Allah not honor me when He's honored me in this world? That seems true, because if Allah honors you here, He should honor you there. He doesn't change His mind.
Yeah.
But the mistake I think we make and he made is he thinks that wealth is equal to honor.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Exactly.
it's something we should be
Absolutely.
careful of, that we think we are honored when maybe we misunderstand we're not honored.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the correlation is wrong. Actually, Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam has a very beautiful sentence in Nahj al-Balagh. He says, فَلَا تَعْتَبِرُ الرِّضَى وَالسُّخْطِ ahle wal mal wal walad, something like this. Do not consider that the pleasure and displeasure of God is connected to wealth and children and numbers. It's not connected to that. It's connected to something else, which is, of course, the way you live your soul, your actions, such things.
Thank you. Any sisters? No. Bismillah. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. Just two questions, but first one is important. How do you differentiate between conditions and causality?
Condition is means that if it is not there, things would not come about. Okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean that if it is there, things would be there. The result would be there as well. When we talk about cause means that when the cause is there, the effect is there, without any, of course, hesitation. When the cause is there, the effect is there. When the condition is there, condition is one of the elements of the cause. So there may be many other conditions which is needed for something to come about. For example, for you to go to Umrah, one of the conditions is that you should have visa. But visa is not the main cause. You just have to have money, you have to means, and many other things should come about so that you can go to Umrah. But visa is a condition. Now, usually, not universally, usually our efforts and our talent is a condition for bringing about these things. But it's not a cause, certainly.
But cannot sometimes condition itself be enough?
Condition is?
It itself be enough for being a cause?
No, condition cannot. That's why we call it condition. We don't call it cause. If it's enough, we call it a cause. Yeah. So whatever we do in this world is a condition. We bring about conditions. Of course, Allah is the cause of everything.
Is the cause of the condition as well?
Yeah, that's true.
what I
Absolutely, yes.
Sisters? Any sisters? No? Manza?
Assalamu alaikum. You mentioned about the condition and the cause to be together to bring about something. And when it says kun fayakun and it becomes, that is where the condition is fulfilled without the outcome is there without the condition. The Allah.
No, when the cause is there, Allah is the
Allah
cause.
causes, and He says kun fayakun.
No, when cause is there, that means all the conditions are fulfilled. When the cause is there, it means that all the conditions are fulfilled. And because there is nothing in this world which can bring about all the conditions, therefore nothing in this world could be cause of anything. For example, the angels who do many things in this world, they are not cause for that. They're just conditions that provided they act in a certain way, things may come about. But of course, these are conditions that which prepare. They call it in philosophy. They call it mu'addat. The things which prepare or pave the way. They prepare the situation so that Allah will give the result, or Allah would cause the result. So the cause is only and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the meaning of La quwwata illa billah. There is no power but Allah. And this man, this is a very, of course, incited person. He has very full insight, the poor man. He says that لَوْلَا إِذْ دَخَلْتَ جَنَّتَكَ. We will mention his argument next week, inshallah. When you entered your garden, why didn't you say, MashaAllah, this is Hada MashaAllah, this is what God has willed. La quwwata illa. Why didn't you believe in this at all? So, yes, of course, for Allah is kun fayakun. He brings about the conditions and He fulfills and He gives. But anything else, and that's why, for example, in many verses of the Quran, Allah says, do this, asa, maybe a cause come. For example, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Maybe you get the taqwa. Because there's one condition, of course, there are other things that should come.
Thank you. Any sisters? No? Zoya?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum salam.
Reward and punishment, is it based on us being when you said condition and cause and the distinction, and you mentioned that condition is one of the elements of the causes. So would it then be that reward and punishment is for that role that we played in that particular cause?
Yes, very important. We actually create conditions to receive rewards and punishment from Allah. Especially the rewards, by our actions, we only create the conditions. Allah is the cause of the rewards. And punishment, we create the conditions for it. And that's why Allah may forgive all these things, and you sin, but the punishment would not come, because it's just a condition for fulfillment of things.
Thank you. Any other sisters? Yes, thank you.
Alaikum salam.
Going. Yes, thank you very much. It's a very interesting subject. So causing, if you want du'as from Allah, that means you are causing that condition for Allah to give you something in life.
You are bringing about a condition which fulfills part of the conditions which is needed for Allah to give, and Allah causes it. Yes, so just like our talent and effort are conditions for producing things in this world, dua is a condition for bringing about the what result we want from it. That's why many a time we do the dua and things don't come about, because other conditions are not fulfilled. So dua is just a condition.
Thank you. Any other? Can I get the mic? Any other brothers, sisters, before I come back here in the back? Any other? No?
Sorry, just to take it further from if you say that without condition, the conditions are required and then Allah causes it. When the test is taken, so for example, if Allah chooses to give somebody a lot to test him or deprive somebody, in both situations, there either a rich person has not done anything extra to be in that position to be tested. Then how different where somebody has done something to be tested, or it's Allah's His own will to test somebody without any existence of condition or cause.
As I said, these are conditions in usual cases, not in all cases. And sometimes you see that, for example, someone is very rich without having any talent or having exerted any effort. There may be other conditions for it, or other elements in the cause which comes. But the whole idea of testing, of course, is very different. That's why Allah says, I am the one who decides who should have more, who should have less. And yes, usually it happens that if you not exert effort, I don't give, okay? But it's only a condition. It doesn't mean that if you do efforts, I give. No, it's only a condition. Allahu yabsutu rizqa liman yasha wa yaqdir. Allah expand the provision and would tighten it. It is He who does it. He is the cause. But you may bring about certain conditions which may work, may not work.
You have a couple of minutes. Anybody wants to clarify? Nida?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
We normally think of loving God, and loving is what carries the day through. But you know, in Surah Al-Mu'mineen it says to pray with khashya. And it's, I find that I fall towards the loving more than the fearing. What condition does one have to fulfill to be able to fulfill that kind of beautiful verse?
Khashya is just one level of the heart of a mu'min, which is much below love. Khashya is a state where you feel the presence of God, and that presence makes you, that feeling of presence of God, makes your heart humble, makes your heart unassuming. You do not assume anything anymore, and that greatness imposes itself upon your heart, and you feel a sort of fear. It's not fearing, like for example, you fear a sort of lion or an animal or something like. No, it's a different thing. Okay. However, this is one state of the heart. Above this, there are many other states. At the end, it comes love, which is, of course, accompanied with reza, pleasure, with whatever God decrees. Love needs greater knowledge. Now, in Surah Fatir, we have this verse, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Only those with knowledge have khashya, knowledge of God. And therefore, khashya needs knowledge. And that's how you can feel His presence. Now, for love, you need greater knowledge. Because how can you love someone that you do not know? You have to have knowledge of God. All these talks which are, as we usually hear from our Christian colleagues, that the main thing is love and such things, I think they don't understand what they are saying. They confuse it with love, human beings loving each other, something like the compassion, such things. No, love of God is the highest status after all these that Allah will give to someone. And that doesn't, of course, exclude khashiyah anymore. You don't say that I love God, therefore I don't have khashiyah from. No. It's a higher station. You have khashiyah and you wholeheartedly love Him. And that's why whatever He decrees, you accept, you love, you are pleased with it. Although you may have pain, but you are pleased with it. Therefore, we shouldn't think that love and fear or khashiyah are opposites of each other. They are not. They are different levels. We have khashiyah, then we have ikhbat. That means you submit wholeheartedly to God. Again, this is not love. Love is even above that. So because most of us do not experience that love, we confuse it with other things, the love that we experience in this world. And that's why we think that it opposes khashiyah and fear and such things. It doesn't.
Thank you. Nija, is the last one, please. Yeah.
So, if we accept that the cause of all the conditions is also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then if you take, so if I, for example, was too unwell physically or mentally to be productive and become wealthy, for example, so Allah decided that. Yeah. He was the cause of that condition. And I accept that. Maybe He has got something better lined up for me later on.
Yeah, yeah.
But taking Zuhair's point, isn't it unfair then for Allah to be the cause of the condition that caused me punishment in the hereafter in perpetuity? That is in perpetuity. So to punish me as a final effect, He is the cause of the condition of my behavior. So is my behavior really not my behavior, but Allah's?
Yeah, this is very interesting because now we come to the argument of Ash'aris. This is what they say. No, don't underestimate their argument. Of course, they have good argument that they say everything is caused by Allah, and therefore, why do you say punishment and reward is due to us? Everything comes from Allah. Now, in his famous book Al-Kifaya, Akhund Khurasani, who was the great Usuli teacher of Ayatollah Naini and others, he comes to this point of, okay, who gives the conditions? And then he says, qalam inja rasid sar bishikast. When my pen reaches here, it breaks. I cannot say anything else. It's very complicated. And we have this tradition from Amir al-Mu'mineen that do not go deep into qada and qadar, because this is what your minds cannot analyze. It's very difficult. Now, the point is, what we can say is that, okay, Allah is the cause of these conditions. However, we react to them. It is the way we react which is regarded as the cause for punishment and reward, not these conditions, of course. Yeah, Allah can give us wealth or poverty. the way we react to them is important, and that is why all these are mentioned as a point for testing. لَنَبْلُوَهُمْ أَيُّهُمْ أَحْسَنُ. I think this may be an explanation that these conditions are all caused by Allah. There is nothing that we can do. However, and this is the meaning of Allah يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لَمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَقْدِرُ. He expands, He tightens by giving condition, by withdrawing conditions. However, the way we react is important.
Yeah, I think Zuhair has something to add, so make it the last one, please. Yes.
Sorry, when we say that we will be rewarded and punished for being that condition.
No, the way we react to the condition.
Yes, react to the condition. We may react to the condition and the effect is not realized because all the conditions are not met. In this world, as far as fiqh is concerned, we would not be punished. So, for example, I plan to kill somebody and it didn't happen. I cannot be punished in this world, but in the hereafter, I would get punished for that. Is that right?
Well, there is a difference of opinion among scholars on this as well, and maybe among the angels. They don't know what to do there as well. But mainly they say that if this is called tajarri. That means you dared against your Lord. You dared to intend to do something, but it didn't happen. Is tajarri something which will lead to punishment or not? There are some scholars who say it does. There are some who say it doesn't. The Shia ulama, the majority say it doesn't because Allah is forgiving. It didn't happen, although you intended, it didn't happen. But if it had an effect on your soul, because this tajarri, this daring against God would have an effect on the soul, would make the soul arrogant, would make it defiant, then that defiant is something which puts you in trouble. Not the act, but the defiant is something which puts you in trouble.
Thank you much indeed, everyone, for the interesting discussion. So we continue, inshallah.
Next week, inshallah. Yes.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.